But, I think I always thought Australia were going to win and win comfortably. This time, because of the way they played in the last couple of years, they've got a very settled top seven, and they've got some ammunition. They've got some pace bowlers. So what they haven't got is what Australia got is a class spinner who may be moving towards the end, but he's got a whole bag of wickets and he's got all that experience. So they have got some tools in their kit bag that can unsettle Australia.
Hello, welcome to the Analyst at the Ashes with me, Simon Hughes.
I'm Simon Mann.
We're in the Perth Stadium, we're supposed to call it, aren't we?
I think so.
Rather than the Optus Stadium, which is what it's actually named as because of the sponsorship rights. Anyway, that's a minor issue. We're here to talk about the beginning of this amazing test series, the first test here in Perth, starting in 2 days' time. And England actually have announced their 12 already, 2 days out. No real surprises. I suppose the big surprise is Mark Wood, isn't it?
What, that he's fit? Or
Well, that they've included it, really, because you'd have thought a week ago when he went off the field in Lilac Hill, nursing a worrying hamstring, that he wouldn't be fit for this game. And I said, actually, at the time, when we had one of our preview podcasts, I said at the time, he's too much of a risk. But he's come through the preparatory kind of scans and been bowling in the nets today, looking great.
Well, Jamie Smith was talking yesterday and saying he was absolutely rapid. There was a sort of official launch yesterday of the Ashes, and it's funny actually. The build-up, there's been a lot of sledging, if you like, from ex-players, media, newspapers, that sort of thing. But the players have played everything down. So the 4 people turned up yesterday to talk up the Ashes. That was about the only sort of half a sledge really on. He's been absolutely rapid in the nets. Mark Wood.
There he is. Look, he's just on the outfield there. He looked a bit like Michelin Man with his leg strapped up on one side, his left leg strapped up. I mean, God knows how long it takes it to get red before he bowls. Incredibly, I mean, he's looking fit, and England want to play him. In a way, I see that because I did say that it was too much of a risk. But actually, if he can bowl 12, 15 overs in innings, why not go for it now? What's the point of waiting? Hit them hard while everyone's hopefully fit, and some of the Aussies aren't.
Yeah, and England want to go hard at Australia with pace. So it looks as if they're going to play 5 pace bowlers. They have included Shah Bashir in their 12. There's some talk it might be Will Jacks, and obviously gives you a batting option. I mean, it'd be really weird, wouldn't it, to have the Bashir project over a couple of years and then get to a pitch that they think might spin and has got some bounce, and then don't have Bashir in the 12. So he's there, but I think inclination is to go with 5 quick bowlers and really hit Australia hard. Now, some people say 5 pace bowlers is one fast bowler too many. But what it does mean is that you can sustain that fast bowling pace throughout the day. Sometimes you have 4 and you get to a stage where, it'd be lovely to have a 5th just to keep it going. You've got to go to the spinner or the part-timer. Whereas in this test match, it looks like England will be just able to be relentless with pace. And yeah, it's not something that happens very often. And most people say, you don't need 5, you only need 4. But England have got the ammunition, and they seem to be prepared to use it.
So this test series, of course, is exclusively live on TNT Sports. And this podcast is also sponsored by TNT Sports. You can watch TNT Sports if you go to either EE or Sky or Virgin Media. You do need a subscription, of course, especially if you want to access it on Discovery Plus. You must be at least 18. And of course, you do need that subscription.
Okay.
So TNT Sports is going to be on air from 2 a.m. on Friday morning, very early, and the play starts at 2:20. A strange time, actually. It's 10:20 open time in Perth, but that's when it gets underway. We're also going to talk today, because our podcast is also sponsored by Betfair, we're going to talk about the Betfair odds, how they see the series, the match, and also some individual performances. We'll come to that. But I suppose first I should just say, to give some perspective, some context on this test match, it will be the 362nd test match between Australia and England, starting, of course, in 1877. And in that time, of course, Australia have won a few more. How many more? Don't worry, I won't challenge you. Actually, 40 more. Awesome. Australia have won 152, England 112, and there have been 97 draws. Australia have always been just bossing this series slightly more. I just got a hunch that this one's just going to turn the tables on Australia slightly. I think England could win. I'll explain that in a bit. But another little stat that's quite interesting, and that will give England some encouragement. The last time 2 Australian debutants were opening the batting and the bowling in the same match was in 1982 Ashes series, and that was who?
You
No.
could have warned me.
The Vessels.
Yeah,
You would never have got that.
Well,
and the other one is even harder to get, actually. Carl Rackerman,
Right.
who opened the bowling for Australia in the 1982 series. That match, of course, was run by 2 runs. Chris Tavare fluffed the catch, and it was taken by Jeff Miller running back. Famous game. Didn't help England win the series, but it was an amazing match for that series. This is the first time since then that Australia have a debutant opening the batting and the bowling. That's Jake Weatherall with the bat and Brendan Doggett with the ball, with the withdrawal of both Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood. They're giving a debut to this quite skiddy, quite impressive fast bowler, but he's not young. He's 31, and all Australia's team are 30, apart from Cameron Green. There've been, few words about the Dad's Army and all that.
Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Stokes? If you think Australia's done.
Yeah, I mean, he's not being drawn into that. So we'll hear a little bit from Stokes shortly. He did an interview with some of the press guys earlier, and we'll hear a bit from him. But he's not being drawn on whether it's Dad's Army or not. In fact, I mean, wisely, he said, look, we're not taking this at all lightly, even though they've lost 2 of their fantastic bowlers. We're treating it exactly the same as we would any other series, which is the right thing to say.
Yeah. There's 2 ways of looking at it. You could say that these are now mature cricketers who really know their games. That's one way of looking at it, isn't it? I mean, it does seem incredible that the 2 debutants are both 31. I mean, normally you think of Davidson's in Test match cricket. I mean, if they're super talented, they made their debut at sort of 21, 22, something like that, don't they? If they're reasonably mature, but very good cricketers, you often think 24, 25, 26. Yeah, Andrew Strauss, for example, I think was 26, 27 when he made his debut. He still played 100 Test matches.
Yeah.
But to make your debut, 2 people in the first Ashes Test to make your debut at 31, it's quite something. And this is an Australia team that feels as though, well, is it on the decline? Has it got one more big effort in it? Who's going to last the series? There are a few creaking bodies out there, a few creaking bodies not going to start the series. We think that Cummins is going to play the second Test match. TBD, really. You get a hamstring injury, they kind of tell you when they're ready rather than the other way around. You can't sort of force them. And it's a big risk. You play a game and the hamstring's not quite right and you break down, then that's probably out of the series. And of course, a problem for the game in which you break down as well. So that's a tricky one for them. But I mean, they sort of say actually that Cummins is ready to go. They feel like he's ready to go now. But they're not quite going to risk him in this game. So it is going to be Steve Smith, the captain. But, Australia, they've got lots of talented cricketers. And we'll go on to our predictions for the series shortly. I know everyone's been waiting for those.
Great.
I think there are a few scenarios in this series, but one of the themes of the series is the age of the Australian side and who is going to be, who's going to play in the next series. Are they going to have 3 or 4 retirements? Is it going to be the last hurrah for a few of them? So that is the thing. Can England exploit that? That's one of the issues. But I mean, it does look as though Cummins back to the next game, and that will be big for Australia. They haven't have to revamp things too much in their team. The bowlers, albeit. One of Boland, who's got a great record here, and one of them is, bowling really well in Sheffield Shield cricket. It does weaken them a bit, but they've still. And look, if you bowl for Australia, you're going to be a good cricketer. So they're not going to bring in a dud.
I noticed you've been doing the Aussie wave there already, early doors. The Aussie wave, famous Aussie wave, flapping the flies away. They are particularly bad in Western Australia for some reason. I played a season here a while back. I mean, the flies just get on your nerves. They're bush flies. They're small and they don't harm anything, but they just get in everywhere. They get in your eyes, they get in your ears, they get up your nose. It's just really infuriating. Perth is slightly different to the rest of Australia, isn't it? It seems the fly is a God's sick joke, I think, because, it's in many other ways, Perth is so beautiful. I mean, I posted couple of things on Instagram. The environment around this stadium, quite near the Wacker, just across the Swan River from the Wacker, but the river is all around us here, waterways and parkland, and it's actually a very tranquil kind of area around this stadium. Perth generally, stunning beaches. The weather here is incredibly reliable. You get the big doctor, the Fremantle doctor coming in the afternoon, the wind off the sea. But apart from that, it's normally very steady. Well, actually, it's ideal. You won't probably get too much of that this early in the summer, actually. You tend to get the doctor comes in sort of more like December, January. And we're still mid-November. So actually, the temperatures for the test match are going to be quite pleasant, I think, 27, 28.
Maximum.
Some cooler.
Some days cooler. And actually, Australia's practice this morning was halted by lightning. So the lightning particles came into play, and they had to move away from the nets for half an hour. So there's been a bit of rain around in the build-up. There was some drizzle this morning. There was a bit of drizzle yesterday. But I think the forecast for the test match is good, but not baking hot.
No.
I mean, I've been here when there was the famous test match where all the journalists some of the journalists had to put their computers in the fridge to cool them down. It was so hot. It was low 40s. Yeah. So it's not that sort of heat.
No, which is good for England, isn't it? Because it means that they're not going to be dealing with horrendous temperatures, and obviously bowling primarily or probably totally a seam attack. That makes it a bit more comfortable for them. How's the pitch going to play? I mean, it looks slightly green at the moment. I think there's a rumour that the Aussies are trying to get it dry so that can work for Nathan Lyon, with Australia having more advantage in the spin department than England. So the likelihood is, at this stage, that Lyon will play for Australia, and they'll hope that the pitch is dry enough for him to get spin in the second innings, whereas probably England will go with their five-man pacing.
Well, I think that's what they are inclined to do and have been inclined to do. But I think it seems as if they might have just looked at the pitch and thought, hold on a second, do we need a spinner here? Do we have to just modify what we thought we were going to do for this test match because the pitch is a bit drier than perhaps they thought it might be? So that is a subplot really as we move towards the game. But I think, as I said earlier, their inclination is to go with to go hard with pace. That could change.
There'll certainly be plenty of carry on this pitch. They've used the same kind of soil as was at the Wacker, just over the river. So it'll have good carry. I think probably it won't be quite as quick as the Wacker, because the Wacker was sort of glass-like almost, and the ball would really fly off and get the bounce as well. Whereas here, it might be a bit more kind of springy, sort of tennis ball bounce without quite the same venom in terms of pace, but still quite a bouncy pitch, and certainly a contrast to what England were playing on at Lilac Hill up the road a few days ago. So, fascinating. I mean, I love Western Australia, actually, because it is a very sport-orientated region of the country. There's just cricket grounds everywhere, and the nets are fantastic. In fact, I was talking to Marcus Ruskothic this morning, the England batting coach, and he said the nets here have been amazing. So much better than anywhere else that you practice. England says it's difficult to get really good nets and let the bowlers fly, whereas here the pitches have been superb. And I just remember that actually from playing club cricket here 30 years ago, that the pitches were beautiful to practice on as well as to bat on. And that's why probably why Australia produces these very good players of the quick bowling. The ball comes onto the bat lovely. They're very good at cutting and pulling. Not so good when the ball's nibbling around, perhaps. But it does produce cricketers who are very robust, strong, quite sort of aggressive. It does promote that sort of cricket and athleticism as well, because the weather was so good here. It's another reason why I think they're very good athletes in the Australian team. So it does feel like this has been as big a build-up for the Ashes as probably 2005. I hope some of you have enjoyed our 2005 Ashes series, by the way. The 6-part series is on YouTube. It's also on this podcast platform. We got lots of interesting interviews, and we chatted through the different matches with the footage as well. Well worth watching. But I just remember the first morning of that series at Lord's, and the way these sort of two boxers who've been chained up for months just let fly at each other. And I sort of feel it's been a bit like that with this build-up as well, with lots of, as you said, ex-players getting stuck in, and lots of sledging on the airwaves, less so from the players, obviously, but the players can't wait to get going, you feel.
Alex Carey spoke yesterday. He was one of the 4 people who spoke yesterday in the sort of official launch. I think he used the word excited 6 times.
Really?
In his sort of TV or broadcast interaction. You just want to get going now, don't you? And get it underway. I mean, it feels that the build-up has been going on for so long. It's much anticipated because England come here with a semblance of a chance in the way that perhaps in 2013, they probably came here with a chance, but got blown away by Mitchell Johnson. The last 2 series, I think I always thought Australia were going to win and win comfortably. This time, England are in it, aren't they? Because of the way they played in the last couple of years. They've got a very settled top 7, and they've got some ammunition. They've got some pace bowlers. So what they haven't got is what Australia have got is a class spinner who may be moving towards the end, but he's got a whole bag of wickets and he's got all that experience. So they have got some tools in their kit bag that can unsettle Australia. And we go back to that last series in England, albeit, get home against Australia for 20 years, and they did unsettle them. People say there was no Bazball, mate, last time. There was. There was some Bazball. That day at Old Trafford where Pat Cummins just didn't know who to turn to next. As England thrashed them everywhere. The Oval, the second innings. Even the first day at Edgbaston, England did take it on, and they did have a go. I think there's that frisson excitement about that, the possibility of that. But England, they need to box clever, don't they, in this series? Big bang was square to the wicket. So, you take on the pull shot, you've got to be careful. We all remember what happened at Lords when England, it felt as if it had a great opportunity and they were on the players were out on the hook. So there's so much anticipation. It is now time to get going, isn't it? And stop the talking and do the walking, basically.
Yeah.
Or not walking here, of course, no one walks, but DRS.
They only walk if the car runs out of petrol, especially in this country. Just to give you a sense, actually, of how intense the preparation has been to this series, Stokes admitted that he fell asleep last night with all the lights on in all his clothes. And he said, well, it's probably because I'm 34. But it just shows how much England are putting in to this, the preparation.
Well, I'd say a couple of things about that. One, he's a very lucky boy if he just falls asleep and sleeps all night, because I find the jet lag almost impossible. How can you be massively tired at 10 at night and then bolt upright awake at 2 in the morning, 3 hours later? The other thing that I think interesting about England have been criticised for their lack of playing a state game or whatever to get used to playing against Australians. If they were lucky to play on a more of an Optus Stadium or Perth Stadium type pitch, that hasn't happened. Kelly against the Lions, and they're barely bounced above knee high. But Mitchell Stark was speaking today, and he was asked about that. And you think, go on, have a that. It was like, put the fishing rod out there, see if you can reel him in a bit with the question. And he just said, well, no, so their preparation is kind of like we did last time. So that's the point I made on the earlier podcast, that England prepared exactly like Australia prepared. They had an inter-squad game before the last Ashes series. They won the first 2 Test matches. So teams do it differently these days. They don't always perhaps trust the other board to come up with sufficient quality of opposition to really test them. So they go their own way, and you can control the environment more, I suppose. But the proof will be in what happens on that ground on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, etc. So we will know how well England have prepared. But it's going to be a steep learning curve, isn't it, from a few of the players who've not played in Australia.
Well, yes. I mean, there's only 5 of this team have played in Australia in an Ashes Test match before, and none of them have been on the winning side in an Ashes Test match in Australia. Only 1 century in that group as well in Australia, and that was, of course, by Stokes, who made it here in Perth, actually at the Wacker rather than on this ground. But, I mean, England have a terrible record in Perth. Generally, they've only won 1 Test match here over history. They first started playing here only in the 1970s because Perth was a bit of an outpost. And to give you an idea, actually, I was telling you this earlier. I'm staying with a former club player from Perth who was then a senior judge, actually, in Perth. Just to show the sort of contrast in people's lifestyles out here. He's got a big Toyota Land Cruiser, which he's had adapted to put a kind of living quarters on the back. And he drives out into the outback a couple of times a year, October, November, before it gets too hot. He drives for several hundred miles out into the outback with a couple of mates, and they park up in the desert, basically, and they walk out with their metal detectors trying to find gold, prospecting for gold. Incredible, isn't it? It's almost like a throwback to the 1880s.
Are they successful?
Yeah, he's find these little nuggets, sort of 2 foot under the ground. They go digging and they walk around and they find, the metal detector goes bleep and they dig where it suggests and they find a little nugget or two, brush it off, take it home. They spend a week or 2 weeks out in the bush.
The gold.
Well, they make it into little pendants, give it to their wife, or I don't know, he said that he might make one into a nugget eventually when he's collected up enough. He might make one into a nugget, but it's that.
They put it in Swiss vault or anything like that.
Well, I think if it was big enough, they might. And the gold price is doing well at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's quite a good thing to invest in. But I suppose it's an indication of the size of Western Australia and the kind of things that go on here in contrast to our little lives in West London, Southwest London.
Well, look, Perth is an incredibly remote city. It feels kind of underpopulated. I suppose if you live in London, which is teeming, isn't it? And it's bustling. Perth seems quite sleepy. But it is remote. It's actually closer. The fact it's closer to the capital of Indonesia than it is to the capital of Australia. Capital is closer to Jakarta.
It's the most isolated city in the world, isn't it, I think? So it does feel like that slightly, doesn't it? But they're all going to be in here on Friday, aren't they? I mean, they're going to be packing, sold out the first 3 days, 60,000 people. I was going to say 50,000 Aussies, maybe 40,000. There's a lot of Brits have come out.
Yeah.
There's
Brits live here in Perth as well, don't they? It's a nice climate out here, and but it'd be wrong to characterise Perth, I think, as sleepy. But it's kind of like relaxed, isn't it? And quiet, and everything's spread out. It's, some trees and the big, huge Swan River behind us. Not much high-rise buildings. A bit in the centre of Perth, but not much. This place is going to be pretty noisy. I mean, it's an amphitheatre, isn't it? It's a bowl. It's an AFL, Aussie rules ground. That's what essentially it's built for. And they put drop pitch in a month ago, and on we go with the cricket. And Australia going well. This place is going to be noisy. It's a bit Gabba-esque. Anyone who's been to the Gabba, it's a bit like that, isn't it? I think this stadium actually feels a bit more intimidating, a bit more on top of you as a player. And it's going to be, something else, to have that full house in the first 3 days.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, so we go to our predictions to finish today. Enough talking, really. We've got to get on with the action, haven't we? So the odds, the Betfair odds for the series, Australia 4-7, obviously favourites. England 2-1. I'd have a bit of that. And the draw 17-2. So that's for the series. Australia 4-7, England 2-1. For the match, the first test, Australia 4-6, England 6-4. So slightly better odds on England winning the first test than they are for the series. Top wicket takers, Stark 3-1, Lyon 9-2, Boland 5-1. So no England players in the top 3 most likely wicket takers. Run scorers, Steve Smith 7-2, Root 9-2. Brook 5-1. I tell you what I like. We had a Betfair man came on our virtual club last week, and he came up with a classic market for Mark Wood to hit the winning runs in one Test match, 250-1.
Well, look,
that's not bad.
You say that though, Yols, but England haven't won a Test match here in the last 15 attempts. The last time they won was in Sydney in 2010-11. So England actually win a game would be something, wouldn't it, after we think of that record? And you're actually asking Mark Wood to be batting at the time and to be on strike and to hit already runs. I can understand why.
Even to play in the game as well.
But how many games is he going to play? All 5? So
it's a niche market.
You can have a go with your tenor if you want.
I'm going to have a go with that. I definitely am going to have a go. And I'm going to talk to Woody and say, make sure you're in the denouement of one of these games. So we've got to kind of give it our predictions now, haven't we? So do you want to start or me?
You can go first if you want.
Okay, well, I think, this is a hunch, obviously. I think England will win the series 3-2. I've been wavering from 2-2 to 3-2, but I just think now is the time to strike against this slightly ageing Australian team. They've lost their 2 crackerjack bowlers for this first test. They might be back later in the series, but their bowling attack is exposed. They've got a new opener as well with the bat, Jake Weatherall, so they're vulnerable at the top of the order. I just think now is the time, and I feel that Stokes and McCullum are on a mission. McCullum has never won a Test series here with New Zealand. Stokes has never won a Test series here with England. He said in his interview, this is our chance to make history. And one of the key things to tell the team is, don't worry about the past. We have our chance to make history here. And I just feel England might do it.
Is that your heart ruling your head, yours?
No, it's not.
So that's your head as well.
That's my head, actually. Honestly, that's my head. I know the odds are in favour of Australia, but I feel a bit like I felt certainly when England went into the 2005 Ashes at home, and also actually to a lesser extent 2010 when Strauss's team won out here. I mean, that team had a fantastic build-up and they were a very strong side, and Australia were definitely weaker. But I had a hunch with both of those series that England would do it, and they did. Hope I'm right. Third time lucky.
Okay. Well, I'm. If you allow me, I'm going to go for kind of like a nuanced approach first. I can see three different scenarios in this series. The first one is a familiar one, the one we've seen in the last three series. Australia go hard right at the start. They dominate their interest. They win it. They go to Brisbane, a day-night game. They win that. They've got a good record in Brisbane, although they have lost a pinball test to the West Indies at Brisbane. So they're 2-0 up, and they're well on the way, and they dominate the series and win 4-0.
You sound like Glenn McGrath.
That's one scenario. The other scenario is what I call the 2010-11 scenario, which is that Australia, they've got some good cricketers, but they are on the downward slope, and England strike early, do well, and they do control it in the way they did in 2010-11. They get some momentum, and some of their star players stand up, and players like Jamie Smith really participate in the series, and they go on to win it 3-1, something like that. And the third option is, no, I'm not going to sit on the fence because I'm going to tell you what I'm saying is I can see, the thing is, this series feels like they've got some plots ahead, and those are two of them. You can see the series going down those two avenues. The third one is that it is competitive, but Australia at home just a bit too strong, win the key moments, and are good enough to win and take the series 3-1. And so that is my prediction. Australia are going to win 3-1 at Betfair Stadium. You can see the other two as well. It's a bit of a mug's game, isn't it? Doing prediction, but that's kind of how I feel about the series ahead of us.
It is a mug's game because at the moment it's so difficult to judge this. Players are injured. Players haven't played any cricket for 6 months.
I think those are the unknowns, aren't they? Those are the factors that just makes it kind of hard to predict.
I mean, if Wood bowls in the middle on Friday or Saturday, like he was bowling in the nets, it will be like Headingley 2 years ago where he took 6 for and bowled brilliantly. And he'll be a real X factor for England. If he doesn't play and, perhaps they're slightly deflated as a result of him not passing a fitness test, or he doesn't perform so well, or breaks down, things could go a little wrong. I'm not saying Wood is the key to it, but certainly if he and Archer can both really fly, that's a massive advantage for England, especially in this first test match with no Hazelwood and no Cummins for Australia.
There has been a narrative that's developed actually over the last few days since we knew that Hazelwood was out this test match, and it's kind of like Australians saying, "Well, if you can't beat us in this game, you're never going to beat us." So it's like putting the pressure back on England. Strangely, coming to Sydney, well, England are underdogs. They can kind of go under the radar a bit, despite the fact that they play this quite bold form of cricket. But now it seems like Australia's trying to heat not the players, but kind of the media trying to heat the pressure on England a bit. You've got to do us here, otherwise you've got no chance. Is that the case? Not necessarily, but it does feel like an opportunity. Australia have got many good cricketers, as I like to say. They're home and they're in the West. It's the West Test. There's a big crowd here roaring them on, and they've been used to these conditions. And of course, you go to the next game, the Gabba, it's a pink ball game. England barely played any pink ball cricket. So, and it's the Gabba as well. Australia normally beating it. So, it does. It's obviously, they're all big games, but if England go 1-0 down, can they come back from that? Well, they could, but I think Australia would be on their way.
I mean, certainly one of the things that, just to finish, is that I think what Stokes and others are approaching this with his mentality is seize the moment. It sounds a bit like a cliche, but it is important it's not so much about the long game, actually. We have to go in with a plan, and we make sure we try and execute that. And if it doesn't work, we have plan B or plan C. And in past series that he's played in the Ashes, England haven't really had a plan, particularly. And they've tended to sort of let the game control them. Now their mission is to control the games, to take the game on and boss it. And they've got the players to do that. Australia will obviously hit the back at them hard, but God, I just feel England could get a bit of momentum if they do well in this Test match and take the series.
I was listening to Ian Chappell speaking on Channel 9 and saying, I mean, he was no fan of Joe Root's captaincy, but really great admiration for Ben Stokes. He says, because he tries to win the game from the first ball. And he says, as a position captain, that puts pressure on you. Because it kind of takes the draw out and you think, well, it's either going to be us or them. It's not going to be the halfway house of the draw. And that England do have that with Ben Stokes. And they do have match winners. They have exciting players. You know, I'm looking forward to watching James Smith play here. I'm really looking forward to watching Harry Brook play here.
Ben Duckett.
And Ben Duckett. I mean, in a way, almost more than Joe Root. Although, obviously, I think sentimentalists and the supporters, people in Yorkshire, Joe Root's family, Joe Root himself, and Matthew Hayden, of course, would love him to score 100 in this series, keep count. So, and England do have bowlers who can cause some problems. And we seem to have got them all fit at the same time, which they didn't have in the summer against India. They were either knackered or coming back from injury or just got injured. Couldn't get them all together at the same time. Here, it looks as though they might be able to do that, but there's so many imponderables and things can all go wrong straight away. I mean, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. You know, who knows who's going to punch the other person in the face first in this Ashes series.
Anyway, maybe that's enough talking. And now it's time for the action. So the action starts on Friday morning, 2:20 a.m. on TNT Sports, and also, of course, on TMS. BBC TMS has got the rights to the radio coverage as well. There'll be about 5 Australian radio stations covering it, all in their different styles.
It's quite fun. So,
yes.
Actually, recording of them all at the same time and mix them all together.
I'm going to do that, actually, because I did that, actually, a few years ago when Australia won the Ashes at Perth. It would have been 8 years ago, actually. And I did actually record the winning moments at 2 different radio boxings. So I managed to be in 2 places at once. Genius. Anyway, we might do that at some point because they do have very different styles. Our style is to say we'll be back on Friday after play every day of the Ashes series. We'll be back to give you an updated report and some analysis of each day's play on this platform, both on the podcast and also on YouTube. Thank you very much to TNT Sports for sponsoring, and also to Betfair. We'll post the odds online as well, so you can follow the path of the series and predictions and so on. We'll be back on Friday evening.
I hope that's whetted your appetite. If your appetite doesn't, you've already been. Speak to you again on Friday. Thanks very much for listening.